So we are training you in that aspect where you will be able to really prevent corruption in institutions.
Comprising 175 or more members and associate professional accountancy organisations, which includes CMA Sri Lanka.
I am confident you'll contribute to the success of your organizations and to the future of Sri Lanka.
And now, as has already been explained, we have our keynote speaker. He's an alumnus of the University of Warwick, but his particular role, as was also mentioned, is as Director, European Federation for Accountants and Auditors for Small and Medium Enterprises. And with him comes a new set of initials, letters. The letters are DCMM. You know what that stands for? Well, you will understand a little bit more after he speaks, I reckon. It stands for Digital Competency Maturity Model for Small and Medium Scale Enterprise. And he has had much to do with setting that up in Sri Lanka, as was mentioned by our previous speaker. So please listen to Mr. Paul Thompson.
Well, good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, students of accounting, members of the accountancy profession. It's a great honor, actually, to be here to preside and speak at such an important event as a graduation ceremony. It's a number of years since I first came to the profession. I graduated and subsequently became a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales way back in November 1991. It's the long distant past, so I've been a member of the profession for a number of years. And it's a real pleasure to be here today. It's a pleasure because I am able to be at an event where I welcome new people to the profession. And hopefully those new people that come to the profession, the new members, will make this profession stronger and better and more robust and more relevant in the coming years. What I want to do, and this is predominantly for those new members, not so much the fellow members, but more for the new members that are joining us today. You're joining our profession. It's a great profession. It's a profession I have belonged to for a good many years. And I'd like to share with you a few words about what that profession looks like today in 2019. How big is that profession? How important is that profession? What work do typical accountants do? And then to look in the crystal ball and imagine what might become of us in the coming years and what you will need to do in order to remain relevant and important in your workplace. I think it's important to congratulate you today for joining the profession, and for those of you that have been with the profession for the past 5+ years as fellows. But I also want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to always keep learning and improving on what you do and helping take our profession to a higher level than it presently is. It's already at a very high level, but we can go higher and we can become more important. The mantle is very much in your hands now. I'd like to think I'm one of the older members of the profession. You are the newer members of the profession. So a few words about the profession before I look at the trends that are impacting the profession and what changes you might need to think about going forward. In 2004, I joined the International Federation of Accountants, and I was with that organization for 12 years. The International Federation of Accountants is headquartered in New York City, the United States. It represents the global accountancy profession, and you're part of that profession. It represents a profession comprising 175 or more members and associate professional accountancy organizations, which includes CMA Sri Lanka. That profession works to develop, implement professional standards. It works to promote and speak out on behalf of the profession. It works to help develop the profession. There's also some regional bodies which are relevant in the accountancy sphere. We've already heard mention of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, and not so far away as the Confederation of Asia Pacific Accountants. They are regional bodies that CMA Sri Lanka is a member of. And not so far away is also the ASEAN Federation of Accountants. If we look further afield, we see in Africa a Pan-African Federation. If we look to the Americas, we see the Inter-American Association. If we look to Europe, we find the European Federation of Accountants and Auditors and Accountancy Europe. And then we come down to national level. At national level, there are over 170 professional accountancy organizations across the world, of which yours is a very prominent and important one. The largest one is the American Institute of CPA, of Certified Public Accountants, which relatively recently merged with the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. They have 431,000 members working across the world. A little bit closer to home, just across the Straits, India is the home of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And that is the third largest professional accountancy organization in the world, with upwards of 300,000 members. And then we have the firms, the accounting firms. Many of you may not work for those firms because they are the, if you like, the members that work in practice will work for an accounting firm. The largest one is an organization, a firm that I first started working for in London way back in 1988, when I started out my training with the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. That firm is now called Deloitte. It has a revenue of $43.2 billion and employs 286,000 staff in over 150 countries. These firms are vast, the big ones, and they're growing quickly. But you know, most accountants don't work in big firms. Most accountants, most professional accountants, work in small firms or in small business. That's where the majority of them gain their employment. You all are either presently or will likely work in business, in the public sector, in academia, what the International Federation of Accountants likes to call professional accountants in business. You are a professional accountant in business. And they work, you work, will work in a variety of organizations of different size, of different scope, of different origin. And collectively, the organizations that you work for, many will be small. And collectively, those small businesses account for over 60% of private sector gross domestic product, or total income, if you will, of the economy. A few words about some other key players on the football pitch, if you like, of accountancy. We have standard setters, we have regulators. We have standard setters, international standard setters, which set standards of financial reporting. There is the International Accounting Standards Board, domiciled in London, that sets IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard. And we have its public sector equivalent, which is headquartered in Canada, in Toronto, the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. And then we have a veritable soup, if you will, of acronyms associated with a range of other professional standard-setting bodies. The International Audit and Assurance Standards Board, the International Ethics Standards Board for accountants, and the International Accounting Education Standards Board. Those three organizations are domiciled in New York City and gain their support, their funding, their staffing from the International Federation of Accountants. Now, a little bit closer to home, here in Asia, we have a body called the Asian Oceanian Standard Setters Group. And they speak up for the profession here in Asia and Oceania to make sure that the global standard setters take account of the unique perspectives and situations of business and society in this part of the world. And then for the regulators. Some of these regulators are not so obvious. The monitoring group is a unique conglomeration of some of the most important regulatory bodies in the world. But until I joined the International Federation of Accountants, I had no idea who they were. They include organizations such as IOSCO, the Basel Committee, the European Commission, and organizations that represent the global insurance bodies. They promote audit quality to foster confidence, public confidence in financial statements. And they have, based in Madrid, an organization called the Public Interest Oversight Board, which oversees some of those standard-setting boards that I mentioned previously. And then we have, for the audit community, the International Forum of Independent Audit Regulators, or IFIAR. And IFIAR comprises independent audit regulators from 50-plus jurisdictions from across the world. I think that's enough that I want to say about the standard setters and regulators. As you can see, it's quite a conglomeration of acronyms. What I want to share with you are some vital statistics for this profession that you are a member of or are just about to join as a graduate. IFAC a few years ago, 4 years ago, commissioned 2 in-depth reports on the profession. One was looking at the numbers, the size, the scale of the profession. The other one was looking at the impact of the profession. The first one, Nexus 1, looked behind the numbers of the profession. It found that professional accountants in total number were growing fast, 16% between the year 2009 and 2013. And in 2013, there were 2.8 million accountants around the world, outpacing growth in overall employment. More than 50%, 55% are like you, working in business, academia, or the public sector, what we call the professional accountant in business. The minority, a large minority, 45%, are working in practice for the Deloittes or the small practices that I mentioned earlier. The other study that was conducted by IFAC was about its global value add. What impact is the profession having on business and society? Well, it was found that the total ecology of the accountancy sector was worth more than $500 billion US, $575 billion, many times the size of the Sri Lankan economy. That is how big the global accountancy profession is that you are joining today. You are joining a community of accountants that numbers in the millions, that collectively has an economy, if you like, that is bigger than your home country and bigger than many other countries around the world. They also have a huge impact on business and society. They have a multiplier effect on employment and other value-added activity. The economic, accountants have been found, as your president just mentioned, to have a very positive impact on the growth of the economy, as measured by income per head of person, or GDP per capita. And accountants have been found to be associated with improved living standards, the Human Development Index being the index that measures the quality and standard of living of people. In a nutshell, countries that have more accountants typically have higher incomes and better quality of life. So that's the effect that you as accountants are having on the communities, on the society that you are working in and are a part of. Okay, we are now at a critical point, I think, the profession. There's tectonic shifts in the nature of business and society. There are global trends that are having an enormous impact on everybody, irrespective of whether you're an accountant or a teacher or a lawyer or sweeping the streets or driving buses. These trends include a crisis of trust. In many countries in the world, especially in the country where I'm currently living, the United States, there is a crisis of trust in government institutions, in business, in not-for-profit organizations, right across the board. There is, in many countries in the world, a talent war. Not a literal war where people are throwing sticks and stones or bombs at each other, but a fight, if you like, between businesses to get, attract, and retain and develop the right people for their organization. There are huge, fast-paced, pervasive, and fundamental changes in technology. Nothing new at all about technological change. What is new is the pace and intensity of that change. It touches all of us. I came up onto the stage with a little device in my hand. I'm sure you all have one, except maybe some family members with young children. Their young children perhaps don't have one just yet. This device has a more powerful computer than the computer that put man on the moon, and I have it in my pocket. And it can only get more powerful in the future. As it is today, I'm using it for email, and it has my PowerPoint presentation on it, including my notes, should I need them, should I run out of words. Technological change came many centuries ago to the profession with the introduction to double-entry bookkeeping in the 15th century. More recently, we had the calculator and the Excel spreadsheet, which impacted my life when I was training to be an accountant. But now we have data analytics, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain, which stand to have a much greater impact on our lives as accountants, as our lives as sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, or whatever we do. We have to embrace that change. We have to reskill ourselves, upskill ourselves, and make sure that we have the right tools. There's also significant changes in business and society. They have different expectations of us as professional accountants. They're not looking anymore for us just to count up the numbers, to be the bean counters. They want us to do more than that. And I'll talk about that in a second. And last but not least, there are other trends, but the fifth one, the last one that I wanted to share with you, is the challenge that we all have today, which is to make this place, our home, this planet, our only planet, our only home, sustainable for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren. And accountants, again, have a role to play. So the upshot of these global trends is that as accountants, we will need a changing skill set, a changing mindset, and different tools. We will need to be more conversant with information and communications technology. We will need to embrace different ways of reporting, not just financial reporting, but reporting on the environment, on governance, on social issues. We'll need to be more than just an accountant. What will need to be? What will the future fit accountant of tomorrow look like? What will they be doing? Potentially a range of things. A co-pilot, not literally in a plane, but side by side working with business to help them navigate their way forward. To be the navigator, to steer that business to a more prosperous future, to protect its brand, to tell stories, not just expressed in financial numbers, but also expressed in qualitative terms. We'll need to be digital and technology enablers, helping clients, helping employers to embrace the new digital technologies. We will be process and control experts, but fundamentally, we will be trusted professional people or advisors. That's what that's what business and society looks to us to do. We are trusted for our competence and our integrity, our professionalism, and the value that we can bring. So we need to discover the art of personal reinvention every day. It doesn't stop here. Many of you have thought, wow, I've got through all those examinations and it was incredibly hard work. I was studying long hours. Whoa, I'm at the finish line. You're not at the finish line. You're now at the start line. You will need to continually reinvigorate, re-engineer, upskill, and keep yourself relevant and on top of changes such as those that I've just mentioned. You'll need to focus on developing and honing personal skills of leadership, of judgment, of ethical conduct. You'll need to use a variety of learning methods, not just the one where you open a big fat book and read it from cover to cover. You'll be using mobile devices. You'll be listening to podcasts and watching videos and learning in different ways, in different places. So to conclude, keep calm, keep on learning, keep on top of your continuing professional learning and development. It starts here. It never ends. The challenge is for you to stay on top of changes in business and society and keep yourself relevant for your employer or for your client. You'll need to have flexible skills. You'll need to be a future fit accountant. So in closing, welcome to the profession if you're a new member. Welcome to the family of accountants. For those of you that are fellows, I congratulate you and look forward to a future where all of you are contributing to a better business and society and a stronger profession. Thank you.
Thank you too, Paul Thompson. Thanks very much for the encouragement that has been offered those gathered here today, which helps us to move along to the formal address by our chief guest on this occasion of the graduation. As has already been mentioned several times, Canada has had a lot to do with CMA Sri Lanka. You've heard that. And we're particularly privileged to invite now His Excellency David McKinnon, High Commissioner.
Thanks. I'm acutely aware that I stand between you and your awards and certificates, so I'll try and keep this brief. I didn't bring a PowerPoint, though, so you might have to take notes. That fell flat. Okay. Professor Watawala, Paul Thompson, members of the Council and Management of CMA, graduands, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a pleasure for me to be here to mark the 20th anniversary of the CMA, Sri Lanka, and the 16th graduation ceremony. And I sincerely thank Professor Lakshman for inviting me and for the warm welcome. As you've heard a bit, my presence here is largely because the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka was set up in the year 2000 with technical assistance from CMA Canada, which is now the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada. This was done with funding provided by the Government of Canada. And in my view, it's been a great return on investment. Canada and Sri Lanka have a long history of partnership dating back before independence. The Royal Canadian Air Force provided crucial support for the defense of Ceylon, and an immigrant from Canada, Mary Ratnam, born Mary Irvine, played a leading role in advocating the rights of women in Sri Lanka, including bringing universal suffrage here, in fact, earlier than it came to Canada. Our support for development in Sri Lanka, though, began in earnest in the 1950s. And that development partnership is often thought of, at least by those I meet in my travels here, in terms of hard infrastructure, whether the Maduro Oya Dam, the Katunayake International Airport, now Bandaranaike International Airport, and the Canadian locomotives that still reliably ply Sri Lanka's railways after more than half a century. And these high-profile infrastructure projects stick in the popular imagination and have been of enduring benefit to Sri Lankans, of course. But I actually think our most important collaborations and investments have been in developing the human capital of this extraordinary, diverse, and creative island. Examples include the education of Sri Lankans in Canada under the Colombo Plan and other scholarships. And those students form the nucleus of what is now our extraordinary people-to-people links. We developed the Institute of Practical Technology, now the University of Moratuwa, the original campus. We developed the agricultural faculty at the University of Peradeniya, what was then the University of Ceylon. And then, since then, it's been extensive work in vocational training, support for civil society, and for think tanks such as Institute for Policy Studies, all of which continue to pay significant dividends, I think, for Sri Lanka and for our relationship. You also have organizations like the International Development Research Center out of Canada, which has funded extensive in-country research in diverse scientific, economic, and public policy areas of importance to Sri Lankans. For me, what makes these investments in collaboration so important is that while they have drawn on Canadian expertise, experience, and support, they're fundamentally about supporting Sri Lankans to understand Sri Lanka's challenges for themselves and to find solutions that make sense in a local context. I think the support for CMA that started 20 years ago is enduring and successful for this reason. A need and the local ambition to address it were identified, and Canadian expertise and investment were found to match. 20 years on, long after the formal Canadian support ended, or that initial support ended, the CMA in Sri Lanka is thriving. This suggests that the original investment was on the mark. CMA has made great strides, first and foremost by being incorporated through an act of parliament in 2009 and being recognized as the national professional management accounting institution in Sri Lanka. And since its inception, CMA Sri Lanka has made a significant contribution in professional management accountancy in this country. That has been done by training and developing world standard management accounting professionals who are innovative, socially responsible, knowledgeable, and capable of sustainable value creation. Management accounting involves preparing and providing timely financial and statistical information to business managers so that they can make informed decisions. Maintaining solid professional accounting practices is, of course, essential for the growth of a business and of the economy. Confidence in accounting practices combined with effective financial regulation, strong corporate governance, and the rule of law are crucial to attracting quality investment in this highly competitive global economy. Management accounting is essential in an increasingly complex business environment. Intellectual capital, human capital, and technological innovation drive the growth and development of business today. Today, companies have to concentrate more on value creation than just valuation. The work of professionals such as yourselves helps the decision-making process of management as they count on their forecasts to make critical decisions. While technical skills associated with financial accounting are important, it is also necessary to possess the analytical skills to understand the underlying business principles associated with accounting standards. In this new scenario, management accounting has grown a whole lot more important. As a result, there is a need to keep pace with these global changes. The inclusion of new subjects such as corporate governance, ethics, business valuation, and advanced professional communication and life skills, among others, into the course on strategic management accounting, enhance further this coveted professional qualification by widening the knowledge and analytical skills of the professionals in responding appropriately to these new challenges. And this is all relevant in your daily lives and in your professional lives. There's been extensive media attention in Sri Lanka, as elsewhere, to issues related to financial mismanagement. Media and occasionally government reports have exposed both private and public sector institutions that are either running at a loss or facing liquidity issues, often due to lack of transparency, accountability, and mismanagement. Accountability is about being responsible to someone for actions one may have taken, about being able to explain, clarify, and justify one's decisions. It implies that someone has a right to know and hold an organization to account, and that the organization has a duty to explain and account for its actions. Transparency is about being easy to understand and being open, frank, and honest in all communications, transactions, and operations. Accountability and transparency go hand in hand. To ensure accountability, there is a need for transparency. Transparency does not guarantee accountability, but it does make it possible. Good governance is always in demand, be it in the private sector or the public sector, if a company or a country is to prosper. A country cannot move forward if there is rampant corruption and mismanagement. A business cannot make profits if it is not properly managed. Accountability on the part of those who assume positions of management, be it in the private sector or the public sector, is essential. Accountability is also about learning from one's mistakes, without which continuous improvement and success will be elusive. On the other hand, a lack of transparency and accountability will create a climate that discourages quality investment, foreign and local, that is essential to a country's progress. Changing tax, I'm very happy to note that the majority of your students and staff are women. And although women are the majority of the population in Sri Lanka, and in my experience, possessed of extraordinary talent, their participation in the workforce of this country, particularly at decision-making levels, is considerably below that of most benchmarks. I think CMA will help change this by preparing women management accountants for the future who can assume higher levels of decision-making, including at the C-suite. Right now, Sri Lanka, like other countries, needs management accountants, women and men, of the highest caliber, who are forthright and guided by the highest levels of integrity and professionalism to serve the country in both the private sector as well as in the public sector. The bedrock of professionalism the CMA provides will help position Sri Lanka for future growth. I want to congratulate the new members, past finalists, award winners, and certificate recipients whose hard work is being rewarded today. I am confident you'll contribute to the success of your organizations and to the future of Sri Lanka. I'm pleased that you've been able to benefit from a strong link with Canada developed 2 decades ago. Let me also take this opportunity to extend my best wishes to the Council and management of CMA, Sri Lanka, for their visionary outlook in the accounting profession and for organizing a very successful 20th anniversary graduation ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, High Commissioner. Which